Tell me something. Why is it that people who book venues will blow up your inbox with emojis and exclamation point? They go radio silent the moment you send the rate. Why do big smiles and hearts and all the other things evaporate like smoke when money enters the chat? Why does the enthusiasm die? 1 minute they're like a teenager with an iPhone on a first crush, and the second conversation it just stops. I'll tell you why. When the conversation stops being free and it starts to be fair. Well, we're going to get into that tonight. Pull up a chair. Welcome back to Ivory's After Dark. Pour yourself something honest. Because here, the lights are always low. The bourbon is neat. The notes are real. And the truth lives somewhere between the keys. That's right. We're going to dig in tonight. I am your host, Jack Rivers. And according to certain things that you might read on the old Facebook or in my emails or messenger box, I'm the piano man who charges too much. Or I'm the ghost whisperers that makes booking agents disappear. I say booking agents is just the people that run the calendar and looking for talent. If they were real booking agents, they would, maybe do their job a little efficiency. Maybe I'm just the problem child who keeps reminding people that music has value. But in all fairness, I'm just me. I just love playing my piano. I love the 88 keys. Others I might be overpriced and I'm all talk and no hustle. But I pour myself into what I do, like many of you. And one thing is for certain. I refuse to apologize for setting a price that reflects my craft. And so should you. So tonight, we're going to talk about radio silence and why booking agents ghost you. I've had a fair amount of experience on this particular subject, so this is for those of you who's ever sent a quote and watch the cursor stop blinking. So let's take a break from the Matrix and lean in real close and listen to another chapter in the Gospel of 88 Keys. Let's talk about the sudden silence, right? Again, they're eager. They're, until you get specific. They're responsive until you talk business. They're, oh my God, we love your sound and we're looking and we think you'll be a good fit and here's some dates and go through all that. And then they ask the question, what's your rate? You say, hey, I'm available. Here's how my pricing breaks down. And then they say, scene. And poof, off into the ether they go. The timeline goes from rapid fire replies to a graveyard of red receipts. It's happened time and time again. What's the deal? You're sitting there confused, scratching your head, right? Meanwhile, they're over there talking about the musician or the band or the artist that had the nerve to charge. See, the problem isn't you. Let's get this out of the way. The problem isn't you. It's what they thought your price was going to be. And that's a variable of different things that we'll dig into. They imagined a bargain. They fantasized about discounted art. And they pictured you playing for exposure, peanuts, free beer, and a burger. For drink tickets. For just the simple joy of being invited. I've heard that. These guys should just be happy they're here. They thought art was free until reality walked in and said, here's the bill. That's when the music stops. You see, silence is not random. No. Silence is a reaction. It's the sound of someone calculating whether your worth fits their budget or their comfort level. And when they realize it doesn't, they don't say, we can't afford you. I can handle that. You can handle that. You something. Hey, I don't like your sound. I don't like this. I don't like that. We can't afford you. We'd all rather hear that than silence, because ghosting costs nothing and courage always costs something. If you really want to know what a venue truly values, don't talk to the owner. I mean, most owners, they wear many hats, but you want to talk to the person who controls the calendar. The calendar keeper is usually the cheapest one in the building. They compare you to Uncle Joey Bag of Donuts, the family discount band that's been doing it for 10, 15 years. The same three guys, the yahoos that they know a couple of chords, they know the same 50 hits they've been playing for the last 20 years. They get out there with their busted speaker and they will play for a roast beef sandwich and a handshake. And you, my friend, cannot afford to compete with cheap. You compete with quality. But try explaining quality to someone who doesn't measure sound with their ears, but with their calculator. They'll say, Uncle Joey did the whole night for $200 in a case of beer. And you'll respond and say, Uncle Joey also uses paper clips to keep his guitar strings together. They'll laugh nervously and ask if you can match his rate. And when you tell them that you can't, because your show is something that shows up with like real value, real instruments, real sound, real gear, real presence, they shrug and they disappear into the spreadsheets. I've seen it happen in real time. I've seen it happen to other people and I was standing there. I've seen it happen to me. If someone's reference point is a nephew with a beat up guitar, you're not negotiating price. You're negotiating standards. And standards don't change in a single email thread. I have a feeling we're going to get even deeper on this, but stick with me. See, most people ghost because they don't know how to say that's above our budget. I've dealt with those. They're rare, and I appreciate the hell out of it. I can handle a no just as well as I can handle a yes. I'm sure so can most of you. They don't say, can we meet in the middle? Because avoidance is easier than honesty. It's easier to blame an inbox, a calendar, a boss, or, whatever, Mercury is in retrograde, than it is to type, we can't pay that much, but we still want you. The irony, the real irony in that is most of us would rather have the conversation. It's that simple. The conversation that would go something like this: we only have this number, can you work with that? Than to stare at silence and wonder, well, what did I do wrong? See, negotiation isn't conflict. Negotiation is a collaboration. It's just an adult conversation, two adults sitting at a table, finding a way to work together. I've done that. I'm still doing that, willing to do that. But see, for people who equate money with shame, who see pricing as confrontation, who were taught that naming value is rude, negotiation will always feel like war. So instead of risking discomfort, they just retreat into their silence. They turn into a ghost. They evaporate into the ether because in their mind, a non-reply, well, it hurts less than the truth. Some people should not be the person in control of booking for venues. They just shouldn't. And okay, here's something you won't hear in the marketing copy. Many people that are in this position aren't allowed to make decisions. They're given that job and their hands are already tied. They're just the middlemen. They're gatekeepers without any kind of key or access. They answer to owners, and those owners still think that it's 1980. Owners that believe musicians should just be grateful for a stage and a drink. Meanwhile, you look at the bar tab. We'll get into all that. Maybe we did. Maybe I'm just regrinding. Maybe I've already done this episode and don't know it. I'm sure many of you might feel that way. But you see, when they look at your quote, they freeze. And here's what goes on in their mind. They picture walking into an office to explain why you cost more than the DJ or Uncle Joey's, discount band. The DJ who spins playlists from his phone. They imagine the owner's eyebrows, lifting over a Rolodex of excuses. They cannot defend your value because they don't know how. Again, some people should just not have this job. I've talked to people who are very, very sharp at this job. They're great. But they'd rather risk ghosting you than getting chewed out, to ask we should spend the money on a night. See, ghosting becomes some sort of shield. Protects them from, an uncomfortable conversation upstairs at the expense of a relationship downstairs. It's cowardly, but it's common. Definitely common. But there's this big lie. You ready for it? They've said it so much that you say it for them now. They're busy. No, they're not. People reply to who they prioritize. We all know what it feels like to receive a message while cooking dinner and still respond because it matters. We've all been in the middle of chaos and still replied to someone we respect. Ghosting is not busyness. Ghosting is, I don't want to deal with this decision today. It's, I'd rather let this sit in my inbox than to hit send on an uncomfortable truth. Busyness is an excuse we use when we don't have the vocabulary to say, you're not my priority. And if that stings, well, I guess we just have to let it sting because clarity is mercy. Lying to yourself about their busyness is just another way of staying numb. So the next time someone tells you they didn't reply because they were busy, translate it like this. I didn't value you enough to hit reply. And that's not something you can change with a follow-up email. Or you can always be a bench warmer, right? Because they like having you as a backup plan. They like the idea of booking you. Most venues like the idea of live music, but they just don't want the responsibility for it. I mean, two things can change it. To dim the lights and turn the TVs off, and you can set an atmosphere for live music. But anyways, it's another whole nother episode. But you see, you end up being a screenshot that they save and send to their boss to show that they've got options. So when it comes time to choose, they'll always choose convenience. They choose, the band that's already standing outside with a guitar and ready to go at a bargain price. And if they can, if you let them, they will keep you on the bench so the seat stays warm, just in case. But they never call your number. And here's the danger of that. If you sit on that bench long enough, you actually start to think things like that the bench is your worth. And then you start to believe that being almost chosen is better than being decisive. So then you confuse possibility with respect. You tell yourself things like, hey, at least they're thinking about me. No, they're not. They're over there telling themselves, we'll use them if we have to. Or my favorite is, we'll come up with a special thing, a special event for you. Don't warm their bench. You weren't born to wait. You were born to play. So play. Go. Somebody told me a long time ago, go where you're celebrated, not tolerated. I trust me when I say that there is room for everybody at the table who operate in that mentality. So, let's not overcomplicate it. They don't want to negotiate. They don't want to explain your price to, the powers that be. They don't want to look cheap either by arguing for an artist's value in a room full of bean counters. They don't want to choose between you and Uncle Joey, because they're going to choose the convenience. They don't want to defend quality. They don't want to admit that they don't know how to evaluate talent. And that's why I said some people should not even be in that, because they don't know how to evaluate it. So they ghost. Ghosting isn't disrespect, it's lack of courage. It's the absence of having a backbone. It's the way of saying, I don't have the language to honor your craft. That's why some of the best talent bookings are people who have an ear for it, at least. Better yet, someone who's played and knows the business. So I'll pretend you don't exist because I don't have the ability or the language or the comprehension to value your craft and explain that. So you didn't do anything wrong. When they ghost you, it is not on you. It's because you bring presence. Presence that forces them to make a decision. And a decision requires courage, and courage is kind of rare. So your price isn't the problem, your presence is. The moment you name your value, there's a big difference between price and value. You shine a light on their scarcity. Your rate exposes their fear, their budget, their inability to champion for quality. It's a flash of truth that blinds anyone who's been squinting through their way through life. They just can't handle your light, and you should not diminish your light for anybody. Let them live in the darkness. If people who book for venues keep ghosting the moment money enters the chat, the only musicians left will be those willing to play for nothing. Peanuts and bullshit and free beer. And those gigs will sound exactly like they cost. If they keep hiding behind excuses, their venues will become ghost towns, filled with empty chairs and a playlist on shuffle. If they keep valuing cheap over quality, quality will walk out the door. But the minute enough of us stop chasing these ghosts, stop chasing them, we'll have no choice but to sit down at the table and talk like adults. We can handle no's. We want to hear the no's. We'd rather hear, no, we can't afford it. No, it's not in our budget. Can you work with this? Blah, blah, blah. Than being ghost. Ghosting is easier than honesty, and it's easier than negotiation. It's easier than standing up to an owner who still thinks that an artist should play for exposure and a hot dog or whatever. It's easier than admitting we don't know how to judge talent. See, it don't take any courage to vanish. It takes character to reply. I'm waiting on a reply right now. I probably will never hear from the guy. Looking for this, looking for that. I send him an email. He sends me back. Here's the dates I have available. What's your rate? Here's my rate. Boom, off to the E3 goes. I'd rather him reply with integrity. They might say not now, or we can't afford that. But at least they'd be willing to speak. The ones without, well, again, they're going to do what this guy did, just disappear. So you stop chasing them. Send your rates and stand by them. Let the silence tell you everything you need to know. Be walking into a room that's going to keep the TVs on and all that other stuff, and that is another episode coming soon, I assure you. Yes, that's right. Dear Jack, quit beating a dead horse. No. That horse is still breathing. But I want to tell you, thanks for stopping by. This has been fun. Until next time, you keep your bourbon neat. You keep the lights low. And don't you dare apologize for the price you put on your craft. I'm Jack Rivers. This has been Ivory's After Dark. Next time, same chair, same piano, different conversation.